With this template, we're going to build a lot more intelligence into it. So with this one, the bond template, we're going to do our best to get it to think through a lot of things so we don't have to do as much adjusting as we did using the loan template, the principal and interest template. So just reminding myself we're doing bonds. And we need to know how much, again, is outstanding, how much or what the interest rate is, the term. The last one we did in years, and just to be inconsistent, I'm choosing months this time. We want to know the month that it is issued, if we can find it. If not, then give it a guess. This is really not looking so much at when it was issued as it is when it comes due. And then we're going to index the interest payments. Typically, bonds are paid every 6 months. The interest on them is paid every 6 months, and they come due typically on the 15th of the month when I have them, which is where it says month issued. This is really, I probably should put month. I would put month, a maturity month, but it's usually within 12-month intervals, so I'm just going to leave it as month issued. Realize that I'm trying to get at when it comes due, and I don't want to use a lot of space to do it in, so we will be putting these in using the same units that they do in the 10K report. So for instance, if these are in thousands, this would be a $20 million bond issue with interest of 6.54%. Term is for 36, let's do 48 months. Issue month, we'll say it comes due in October. And just so we understand what I mean by interest index, this is not something that you have to fill in. In fact, these are the only ones you'd have to fill in. In fact, we could even turn them a different color so that we know that those are the ones we have to fill in. I'll do blue. The interest index is an if-then statement. We'll say equal if the month issued is greater than 6, then we're going to take that number and subtract 6. Otherwise, just take that number. Here's the idea, by the way, so that you know what we're doing. We want to know the first time in the year that the interest comes due. And since it comes due every 6 months, in a bond which was issued in October, the first interest payment will come 6 months later. But since there are only 12 months in a year, if you go forward 6 months, you'll hit April. If you go backward 6 months, you'll hit April. And so this is actually trying to figure out when that first one in the year comes due, the first interest payment. So this should say 4. And as I hit enter, it does say 4. If we change this to say 3, ooh, that's the first one in the year, but that's why we have an if-then statement. It will tell me 3. If we say 7, the very first payment, if we issue it in July, will have to come due in January. And so that's all it's doing, is it's telling me the first one in the year, when does it come due? That's all we're indexing. I'm going to jump down here now and start into the guts of the template with the month. And this time we're not going to do January, February, we're just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to do interest. We're going to do principal. We want to see the number of months accrued. We'll try to figure out whether we need to continue accruing, and then we need to figure out how much accrued interest we have. Now for these, you can tell we have way too little room because you can't read any of them, so I'm going to go on top of them and kind of widen them out. Wow, G kind of didn't get anything done to it. So here we go. Month, and actually let me highlight and center in the case of month. I'm going to do 1 and 2. I'm going to highlight both 1 and 2, center them, and I'm going to pull this down. Now, I need at least 6+ years. What I'm probably going for, though, is closer to about 8-ish year, 80. Yeah, well, I'm going to go for 90 since I've got them there. Okay, so there are all my months. Have more than I really need, but what the heck. Interest. With interest, what we're going to do is, for any bond, the interest that comes due in the month, we don't pay it till we're 6 months into it, but the amount that accrues, because remember, we have the entire principal out there. We look at how much has accrued in interest and we just accrue it. That's what eventually what we're going to do. We're going to figure out whether we're paying it or whether we're accruing it. So in interest, we're going to say the amount outstanding times the interest divided by 12. That's how much interest has accrued on that bond in the first month. The principal this first month is, and I'm going to set this one up so that it will always work, so equal if, I'm going up to the term, as long as it hasn't come due. And by the way, because I'm setting this up so it will always work, I'm hitting B4 at this time, or F4, excuse me. I'm in B4, but I meant to say I'm hitting F4. So if F4, that term, if the number of months in the term are greater than the number of months that have passed, then we have the full amount left outstanding. If that's not true, then we have nothing outstanding because we paid it off. This is where it gets intelligent. This is where our amortization schedule in this instance becomes intelligent. We're going, this is as long as we still have months left on this, we have the full amount, otherwise it's gone to 0. And by the way, the C2 is wrong. That should be B2. There, wow. I'm glad I checked that. So when I put the closing parenthesis on, I can make sure that all of my numbers make sense, and they do now, although there for a minute there they weren't. So I'm now going to hit enter. Probably want to format that one. Don't need the decimal points probably. Now as far as the months accrued, okay, the logic here is a little dense, so let me kind of go over what I'm doing, and it might make sense and it might not. Okay, so if you follow this and kind of get them tied in, it'll do it right, but you'll kind of have to trust me in some ways. So here we go. We're going to say B9, or excuse me, A9. So we're looking at the month number. We're going to add 6 to it because we are paying every 6 months. Okay, you're going, but it's not tied to month 1. Chill, because now we're going to take those and we're going to subtract out our interest index. Because we always want that interest index to be the interest index, I'm going to do my F4 key. Now as we move our way down here, this could become a very large number, and so what I'm going to do is subtract out all of the excess big long numbers out of there to find out how far long we are after paying the last interest payment. So at this point we're saying minus, and I'm going to do integer, parenthesis, parenthesis. I'm now going back to A9 plus 6. This looks the same. Minus, yeah, it's going to look a lot the same here, darn it. I'm going to close parenthesis. That's the end of the first chunk, but that's still not the end of the integer. So I'm now going to divide by 6 and then close the parenthesis for the integer. And now before I do much else, I'm going to multiply by 6. So in the first instance, I'm going to end up with a 6 here and a 7-ish. Well, let me think. That plus 7 minus 4. So I should end up with a 3 because we're 3 months into this. This is one of those things where you go, trust me, this is working. So enter. Okay, I must be having this C thing going on. So let me show you what I did wrong. Yeah, do you notice that I got off again? I don't know how I keep getting off on these. That should be a B, I'm pretty darn sure. And that should be a, let's hold that constant, I'm pretty darn sure. And now as we do it, we get a 3. Now by the way, this one we will be able to copy down in a minute, okay? So hang in there. That one and that one are copyable, okay? Continue accruing. In this instance, just put a 1. This is a 1 if yes, 0 if no. Accrued interest equal if interest is greater than 0. Then we take our number of months that it's been accruing. Now remember, we have a half a month. We're paying things at half month intervals too. So we're adding 0.5 because the thing comes due on the 15th. I keep saying that. And we're going to multiply that by the number of months. Otherwise it's 0. When it stops accruing interest completely, we go to 0. That's essentially what we're saying. The next row we're going to set up to do things that are relatively similar. So in the first instance, this first one I should have just set up right to begin with, because all we're going to do at this point is take the principal outstanding times interest, or interest rate, divided by 12. And for some reason that's set up differently than that one is. That's just freaking me out. So I don't know which way to go on this. So I think what we're going to do is copy and paste formats, and then probably highlight both of those because we're going to be copying down at this point, well, very soon. And with these, you can see that I put the dollar signs in that one. I put the dollar signs in that one. I didn't put any dollar signs in that one. So I'm going to grab both of those and pull them down because these I've actually made a mistake on. And in this instance, I needed to go hit my dollar sign. Wow. So pull that one down. This one's at 4. By the way, this is saying that, that's how many months. So once we get up to 6, it should pop back down, by the way. Continuing accruing, and this is an if-then statement as well, equal if. Now we're going to be saying if this number times that number is greater than 0, then 1. Otherwise, that number times, and this is called a nested if statement, if that one is greater than 0, then 0. So what we should be getting out here is a 0 temporarily, but what we're going to find out is as I pull that down, it goes to 1. Accrued interest equal if our interest is greater than 0, then we're going to take the number of months. Whoops, let me do this again. Oh, I did put the parenthesis on there. Plus 0.5 times the interest. If B10 is not greater than 0, in other words, we're no longer accruing any interest, then we're going to say whatever you did last time times whatever this continuing accruing thing is. That's somewhat confusing, but it will kind of work, okay? Now at this point I do need to just grab all this stuff and double click. Okay, maybe not. I'll just pull it down the old-fashioned way because it doesn't want to go the newfangled way. And here's the beauty of it, okay? We said that it would stop. Well, let me go to the top again. It's a 48-month bond. At month 40A, we're still paying that one last month of interest. We will, at the end of the month, we will have nothing outstanding, and we're going to pay all of that stuff off to 272.5. And so the weirdness here is, however, that we have it paying off at a weird time, because usually these will go at intervals of 12, and this isn't doing it. So it looks a little weird to me. It may not look weird to you, but it's doing exactly what I've designed it to do. And so if we wanted to, we could expand this to say, 72 months. By the way, what if I say, oh wow, it's going to be going, it's going from now until, and you have some day, year and month. Well, you're going to have to say from the last financial statement until that year and month, how many months are there? And it's usually just I just go to the year before that. So if it said, if we were looking at end of 2014, and we're saying from 2014 December 31st 2014 to June 2024, well, from 2014 to 2024, you're going, that's 10 years. But go the year before, so you're going 2014 to 2013, that's 9 years. And then to June, that's 6 more months. So that would be 9 years, 6 months. So that would be, I would just do the following. I'd go equals 9.5 times 12.5 because we have 6 months. And I have 114 months total. And then as I look down here, it goes all the way through. Or, you know, if I have 82 months, and I can look down here and it will adjust. That's the beauty of this particular template. Now, we have to do a summary over here like we did on the last one. And so I'm going to drop down on I2 and say interest, expense. Then I'm going to skip a couple of lines and say balance sheet portion. The interest expense is obviously off the income statement. Bonds have an extra line on the balance sheet. If you are dealing with them, you have accrued interest, because we have interest that is accrued, but we haven't paid it yet. That's why we've been accruing it here. That's why we're trying to figure out how much we have outstanding there. I'm going to be looking at now current maturity, long-term debt, and then long-term portion. That's probably a good way of putting it, so we have a better idea as to what it is we're saying. And at this point, we need to put in here year 1, and we're going to do year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, before I get started, this is kind of driving me nuts because that's not bolded, so let me first off bold that so that it doesn't look like I'm putting anything out this way. It's just a heading for these things here. In fact, I could probably even do that better if I would just indent those, and it would probably be okay. So anyway, interest expense. So the interest expense for a year is going to be equal to, just like it was on the other one, and take all of the interest that we have quote paid unquote. This is the expense that has accrued over that year or been paid, and I'm just going to sum it, and there we have it. At this point, we're going to run that same macro that we used in the last video. So if you didn't use it, well, go watch that and learn how to record that one and tweak it. But at this point, I'm just going to throw them in there, and it has now actually also done the adjusting of the column width. Accrued interest. In this instance, we're just looking at the stuff that has accrued at the end of the month. These are balance sheets, therefore we're just looking at something that happened at the end of the month. And so in this instance, we plug it in and we run the macro. Current maturity of long-term debt. This is the amount outstanding, so we have how much principal is there here minus how much principal is there at the end of month 24. So it's just the end of month 12 to the end of month 24. Should be a 0, by the way. In this instance, doesn't mean it's always 0. So I'm now going to run that one across. And then finally, I'm going to do long-term portion, which is just going to be the stuff at 24. I hit enter, and then I'm going to again run my macro one last time. And now, just to show that this is actually doing something, if we would have changed the number of months to 36, you'll notice how we actually pay it off. My accrued interest goes to 0. We pay it off by the end of year 3, or maybe at the end of year 3. And you can see things go from long-term portion to current portion to being paid off. That's what this should be doing, and that's the end of this particular template.